Today, almost all rap music is following the trend started by trap music. Though some people say that it lacks the substance that rap music once had, it is great to listen to and can be relaxing at times, while other times being fun to turn up to. Either way, based on the prevalence of the music today, trap music is undeniable in its influence. However, since this summer's low record sales for one of the biggest trap artists, Future, as well as T.I.'s statements to the media that he created trap music, there has been a fight over who is the one who actually started trap music. And to get to the bottom of this issue, we need to define trap music. What is it? Is it music that's from Atlanta? Is it the beats? Or is it about the story and the feeling that the music portrays? Next, we look at the artist who most likely created trap music, and that usually comes down to T.I., Young Jeezy, or Gucci Mane. So starting with, is it Atlanta? Is it the geographic location? Many people say that trap music did not start in Atlanta because it started with Pimp C and the Houston rappers. But Pimp C never actually said he made trap music. He said, quote unquote, that he made country rap tunes and never used the term trap in any song. No Houston rapper really used the word trap in any of their songs, and they especially did not put it on the national stage during the big Houston surge in 2004 with Chamillionaire and Paul Wall. They did not use trap or the name trap music, none of that. And even though those groups were from the South and they rapped about being from the South, they had the look of Southern hood guys who sell dope, and they might be pimps and they might break and enter into your suburban home. They still didn't use the word trap. 21 Savage made the argument that trap music can only come from Atlanta. He said that it's not based on the beat of the music or the predominant 808s, but it is only music from Atlanta. Now, after the commercialization of the trap sound and after the Future reign and the domination of the Migos, a lot of artists from all over the world started to use the trap sound. And they used it because it sounds good, but not because they had any cultural ties to the music. And it's notable that the Latin trap music that has been created lately is not from the American South. It's not from Atlanta, and it doesn't have the same story. The people who make the Latin trap music, they have had their own stories to tell, but it's not the same story as the Atlanta trap. So when different parts of the world and different artists get into making trap music, it does sometimes seem like a surface level mockery of the trap music that was actually created in Atlanta. So when 21 Savage says that all trap music comes from Atlanta, that's basically what he's saying, is that other cities try to mock us, other parts of the world try to mock us, the record labels try to mock us, but trap music can only come from Atlanta, from the trap. So, though many states have their own style of music, like New York rap, LA rap, Florida rap, they're all influenced by each other, and they also have a regional sound. Someone from New Jersey might have a style that's similar to a New York style, and even though they're not from any of the five boroughs, it's still similar to the New York style. In the South, there's not as much industry as there is in New York and the major cities that industry surrounded. So Atlanta, Houston, Memphis, and Miami have been at the forefront of rap in the South, most likely because of the access that artists in that area had to record labels. Though there are some notable exceptions, the success of New York rap had before the internet came into play had to do with their access to mainstream media, including television and radio stations, as well as their closeness to major record labels. After the internet, when the consumer had the ability to choose what they liked, The labels were no longer as important, but before that, the people in power were from New York, had a better understanding of New York hip hop, and they didn't really believe in the Southern talent. Atlanta was pivotal in changing the South into the most important player in the rap game. Outside of the surge of Lil Wayne, the most popular rappers since 2005 have been from the South. Trap music also came out of that wave of rappers. The trap house is part of the culture for many people who live in underserved communities. Historically, it was called a crack house in other regions. A trap house is where drug dealers waited to sell drugs to the community users. The most famous and possibly first use of the word trap in music was in the Spotty Odie Dopalicious on Outkast 1998 Aquemini album. So on this, Big Boy raps, "Can't gamble feeding my baby on that dope might not always be sufficient, but the UPS and people at the post office didn't call you back. You had cloudy piss, so now you're back in the trap, just that trap. Go on, marinate on that for a minute." So Big Boy's verse there highlighted the true story of many people from this neighborhood in Atlanta at the time. That what was once fun and somewhat glamorous life of a drug dealer turned into a struggle, and the freedom and economic advancement it once brought is now seen as a trap when true responsibilities came. Though the Spotty Adi Dopalicious did not contain 808s or even a distinctly southern style, this Outkast was just on their own entity of genius in the southern music. The music did tell the true story of Atlanta and the black people who lived there. The term trap was not used first by any other southern artist, it was used by Atlanta artists first. This can be considered a lingo of Atlanta and spread to other parts of the South and then throughout the world. So when 21 Savage makes a statement that trap music can only come from Atlanta, he's protecting the legacy of the term and of his city from the appropriators that came with the popularity of the art form. For those purposes of this essay, I'll be focusing on the city of Atlanta as the place where trap music comes from and its artists, including rappers and producers who created the music that's so popular today. So the first part of analysis that we go into when it comes to the Atlanta rappers is it the story or the feeling of the music that actually makes it trap music? So trap music is really the story of a drug dealer and basically the music that a drug dealer would want to listen to when he's working in the trap house. But rap music has been about drug dealers since the beginning. And here's a little recap. In the 1980s, the FBI needed to fund the war on drugs, aka America's 40th war on black people in the modern age. And so the FBI put drugs and guns into black American neighborhoods, which created that crack epidemic. This was also around the same time that rap music started gaining popularity, and rap music delivers the message of the black community. Therefore, some format of rap has always been about drugs, selling drugs, crackheads, and being from a black community. It started in New York, then the West Coast picked it up, and then there were also Southern acts. Unlike New York or LA, there's not much industry in the South, and there's really not a music publishing or entertainment industry in most parts of the South. That made it much harder for the Southern acts to be prominent. Most Southern acts, including Master P and Birdman, Gucci, Trick Daddy, Pimp C, and Bun B, all had their own record labels that surrounded their music, where they were able to bring in local talent and create the regional sound that existed in hip hop until the internet. Regional sounds were extremely important pre-internet and how most people associated with their favorite rappers. If someone was from New York or LA, it's unlikely they would be listening to a Southern artist. The stories were more insulated, though there were similar stories everywhere. And also accents were really important in this type of music. Earlier Southern rappers were often criticized for their focus on jewelry, pimping, drugs, while New York rappers were called more lyrical and had more messaging in their music. The education system of New York, as well as its public library system, is one part that sets New York apart from the South. Even in the roughest neighborhoods in New York, there is a better educational system than many parts of the South, even the best parts of the South. Also, the southern states have less access to vocational high schools, and especially, they don't have the performing arts schools that most of the New York acts went to. Prodigy is a New York rapper who notably discussed skipping school to go to the library, something that many southern acts would not have access to. Being raised in an urban center as opposed to the country has a meaningful effect on people and can change how many people live. Those southern rappers did rap a lot about cars and jewelry. Their music did have a deeper message. It did not have to be spelled out word for word in the lyrics, but it was there. The feeling was there, the story was there, and the rappers were able to express how they felt about their living situation and the situation of their people without having to spell it out word for word. They used their vernacular for their people to understand. But though trap music does contain a certain story, rap music has always been about the struggles of black people, and especially those black people from underserved and government manipulated neighborhoods. Rap music from the South came before trap music, and just because it's rap music and it comes from the South, that does not mean that it's trap music. The story of trap music is pretty similar to the story of all rap music. The story of a drug dealer, pimp, or hustler who grew up in America's predominantly black ghettos and neighborhoods, who went from rags to riches while maintaining his gangster roots. So the story's not a new one, and it's not what sets trap music as we currently understand it apart. And that brings us to the next part of this explanation of who created trap music, the beat. Prior to the beginning of trap music during rap's golden era, musicians from the South used samples similarly to the New York artists who predominated at the time. Rappers from Pimp C to producers like Mannie Fresh used sampling in the same way Kanye did for Jay-Z's music. The use of the sample and the interpolation of samples was to give the music soul, with the artists giving their own feelings through their raps over the sample. There was also the crunk phase of the South, which was not even close to trap music. The sound of trap music is very important to what it actually is. We know that the sound of a trap beat when we hear it. And with FL Studios, it's been extremely simple to recreate a beat. The most important elements to the sound of trap music are the 808 drums, the synth, hi-hats, and bass. This sound is also created by the use of mumble rap and ad-libs that are predominant in pretty much all music now. The bass already existed in Atlanta's music and also came from Uncle Luke's party music of Miami. The synth came from the 3-6 Mafia music and also UGK music. But the hi-hat was the addition that, in combination with the traditional sound of Southern rap music, created trap music. The 808 drum machine and its kick drum and hi-hats were not popular among musicians at the time when it came out in 1980. However, it was embraced by hip-hop musicians, starting all the way with Afrika Bambaataa, who with his producers took the music to Miami, where it was used in some of Uncle Luke and the Two Live Crew's most popular songs. Mannie Fresh used the 808 beat as a major part of production, and it was used even in the mix of the samples he used in his music. When the music got to Atlanta, however, it started to be used in a different way and truly embraced by producers there in the early 2000s. The primogenitor of the trap beat was an artist called Drama. In 2000, Drama, alongside producer Shawty Redd, was the first one to come out with the drum vision of trap music. He wanted specific drums, and Shawty Redd was the one who added 808 to the tracks. Though Shawty Redd's beat was extremely similar to modern-day trap music, considering that he produced many songs for Gucci Mane and Young Jeezy, the rapping on this song was very loud and almost shouting and similar to a DMX style. Drama's lyrics did not really show any reminiscence of other Southern acts, and he did not even have a noticeable Southern drawl. However, neither of them called this music trap music or used the term. With Shawty Red's early tracks as well as Mannie Fresh's music, they were still more of a precursor to trap music, and they weren't really the trap music that we know it today. After Drama's album, the next albums that Shawty Red produced were Thug Motivation 101 for Young Jeezy and Gucci Mane's Trap House. Though trap beats and especially 808s were used on both albums, trap music actually had the same sound of later trap acts such as Migos and Future. Other Atlanta producers, most notably Zaytoven and Mike Will Made It, also had a similar sound, and they are some of the most prominent producers to date. Shawty Red and Zaytoven are not credited as producers on T.I.'s albums I'm Serious, Trap Music, or Urban Legend. Both of those producers were becoming prominent in Atlanta around that time and could have easily been used or named on the tracks, but they were not. They really were the ones who created the trap sound and created it before it was easily reproducible through the internet and Fruity Loops. This is part of the reason why T.I.'s music did not have the trap sound that we could compare to the most prominent form of music today. T.I. used the term trap as branding for the city of Atlanta, basically explaining that anywhere that was predominantly black, where people did not have the access to the same resources as someone would have in an upper class neighborhood or in a major city like LA or New York, that it was the trap. Though he uses the term trap, his music on this album was not high on 808s or this trap sound as we know it now. And also, T.I.'s music at that time did not look or feel very Southern. And that brings us into the beef that occurred between T.I. and Gucci Mane. And it was basically about who was the originator of trap music. T.I. says it's him. Gucci Mane says it's him. A lot of people say that it's one or the other. A lot of people are taking sides. But to break it down, the first album that T.I. released was I'm Serious, and it was released in 2001, and that was 2 years before his better known album Trap Music, which was released in 2003. So personally, I did not even remember I'm Serious, but it was released in 2001. I did remember Trap Music. I did not know any songs on I'm Serious, but I did remember Trap Music. That was definitely his bigger release. So I'm Serious had the southern touch, and it was really reminiscent of the Houston and Memphis rappers. If you listen to the intro on I'm Serious, it actually sounds just like Pimp C, and it used some of his ad libs. T.I. calls himself the King of the South, but he was only 21 at the time of the recording of the album, but he definitely calls himself the King of the South from the very beginning. A lot of rappers do that. They say what they want to be before they're actually it. T.I. has always called himself the King of the South. He mixes the true story of the South, the R&B tracks on this album, and then he also, on this album, used the heavy synth that was made popular by 3 6 Mafia and Underground Kings. I'm Serious did not get the critical acclaim that T.I. was likely hoping for in his debut album. He only sold 270,000 copies, and that was really low during 2001. The album only peaked at 98 on the Billboard 200. And though T.I. proclaimed himself as the King of the South early in this album, critics agree that the album was a blatant ripoff of other Southern artists. Even though the Neptunes produced the title track of this album and the album featured Beenie Man, the single did not reach the Billboard 100. Overall, this album was extremely Southern sounding, but not trap sounding. And I'm Serious was basically a flop for Arista Records, and no second single was released after the first single with Beanie Man, and T.I. was dropped from that label after releasing I'm Serious. Now, when you take into consideration that there are few record labels in existence in the southern states, and the labels that did exist, they focused on more of a commercialized sound. Most of the southern rappers created their own labels and worked with record labels as distributors without even trying to have a solo artist deal. T.I. strayed from that path when he went to Arista and he released I'm Serious. But as he continued to go through music, he did take the Southern rapper businessman approach, similar to the Master P approach of creating his own label. T.I. started to release his In the Streets Volume 1 through 3 mixtapes, and in interviews, he compared it to the New York movement. He was more than likely referring to the success of 50 Cent, who came out with the street mixtapes after he was dropped from his label before he was later signed again to release Get Rich or Die Trying. Again, although T.I. was really following in the footsteps of so many Atlanta and Southern rappers by creating his own label and then going to a record label as a partner in distribution, T.I. compared himself to a New York rapper in the press. His next album was Trap Music, released in 2003 through Grand Hustle Records and distributed by Atlantic. Trap Music was another Southern sounding album, and its major singles were Rubber Band Man and 24s, and those had a really Southern sound. Though T.I. used the word trap to describe this album, and though he was not the first rapper to use the phrase in music, he definitely brought the actual phrase trap music to the forefront more than any other rapper before him. Though he may have made the term trap music better known to the masses, actual trap beats were not used in this album. The Rubber Band Man was produced by Southern producer David Banner, and 24's and Be Easy by T.I.'s longtime producer DJ Toomp, and Let's Get Away, his other single, was produced by Atlanta's Jazzy Faye. Really, the furthest he gets away from the Southern rap sound in this album was the two Kanye West produced records, which were not even the major singles on this album. The country feel was there, and the album was a commercial win for T.I., with critics explaining that it made a huge improvement from the original album. The first week sales for Trap Music were 110,000, though the album later went platinum with over 1 million sales to date. For T.I., who was basically an independent rapper who had a distribution deal, the numbers were good, but in the mix of that year's competition, the King of the South may have felt some pressure to do better. In February 2003, Get Rich or Die Trying was released by 50 Cent, which had 872,000 in first week sales. Later that year, 50 Cent presented G-Unit in the Beg for Mercy album that had first week sales of 380,000. In that year, Jay-Z's Retirement Black album sold 463,000 and topped the charts the week of his release. Earlier that year, Lil' Kim's La Bella Mafia sold 166,000 records, outselling T.I. This year was dominated by New York rappers, especially 50 Cent, and their sound with some inflections of the South. And though Juelz Santana's From Me to You, featuring the single Santana's Town and Now What, which featured T.I. and Jazzy Faye on the track, only did 95,000, it would be pretty difficult to not get through that year without feeling that New York rappers just did better. Historically, throughout the 90s and up to that point, New York rappers did always outsell Southern rappers. Even though there were major influences from the South to pop charts, especially with Jermaine Dupri and So So Def, whose major rapper was Lil Bow Wow, the Southern feel that T.I. was emanating was not really felt in that music. Popular rap that was still hard and street but got played on BET and charted was really the New York music. So for T.I., though his album did well and he was independently releasing and creating music with a huge impact, it may have felt like he had something else to prove to the world. On March 3rd, 2005, T.I. released Urban Legend, which is his third studio album, marking the finale to his introduction into the rap game. He noticeably left trap out of the name and added in urban, something that has been more notably used as a name for New York, which is an urban center, and also what the music industry calls all forms of black music since hip hop was created. Instead of staying true to the southern music he started with in I'm Serious, and that he continued into trap music, the music has had some southern flair with some hints of synth, but more of the New York sound that was more popular up to that time. Though he had a southern party anthem with Get Loose featuring Nelly, and the album was mostly produced by southern producer DJ Toomp, with a song produced by Mannie Fresh, all of T.I.'s singles and visuals and cover art is what separated Urban Legend from trap music. T.I. appeared on the cover album for Urban Legend with a beanie and a jacket with a hoodie. The major single off this album, as well as T.I.'s first top 10 hit, was Bring 'Em Out, sampling Jay-Z and produced by Swizz Beatz. This was a very New York sounding song and also had a video that mixed some of a southern culture with New York style. T.I. was dressed in an almost Diddy-esque leather bomber jacket with a fur trim, wearing a beanie in mostly only urban situations through the video. Again, in the You Don't Know Me video, the style was very urban, with T.I. walking around urban centers, and the coloring was almost reminiscent of a Freeway and Jay-Z What We Do Is Wrong video, just with some quick shots of donks and men with gold teeth. Though this song notably, and unlike most of T.I.'s songs today, actually did feature an 808 kick drum and hi-hat, it was for small parts of the song, small southern details, similar to the ones he added to the video. Though T.I. started his career making real southern rap music more similar to the country rap tunes that Pimp C created, by the time Urban Legend came around, he seemed to be more hip hop, something that Pimp C wanted to stay away from. T.I.'s fight, and more than likely Atlantic's fight also, for mainstream record plays and Billboard charts, left him looking less like the king of the South and more like that country cousin who spent the summer in New York City and went back to school in Atlanta wearing Timbs. T.I. shows the trouble that Southern artists had at that time in music. They had less access to labels and media because they were not in New York or LA. Also, the bulk of their fans were away from any of the outlets the big cities had to offer. No New Yorker was calling up Hot 97 and requesting T.I. or Pimp C. T.I. had to make his way to remain the king of the South, and a lot of that meant for him to top the hip hop charts, which for at least the past decade at the time was only occupied by New York rappers. The crossover sound of Bring 'Em Out was necessary for him to climb the charts, more than any Southern rapper was doing at the time. T.I. did not completely sell out the South on any of his singles on Urban Legend, or even truly on the title or the imagery, but he did change his look and sound to fit a wider audience and overall succeeded in selling more records. On March 28, 2006, T.I.'s album King was released in conjunction with the movie ATL, which released the same week. ATL gave people a new vision into the Atlanta, into what T.I. called the trap. The conjunction with the kid-friendly skating movie ATL, the King album, made it seem as if that was a true trap, and it wasn't a commercialized version of the city of Atlanta that did not truly delve into what the trap really was. T.I. explained the trap he knew in the best way he could while still appealing to the Viacom audience. In King, T.I. starts with a Just Blaze produced record and then goes into a song featuring UGK in which he literally says, "I know a lot of y'all out there who ain't up on this down south shit. You're probably wondering what the fuck you're listening to right now." It seems like a strange line to start off on a record featuring two of the most iconic Southern rappers of all time, as well as T.I., the self-proclaimed King of the South. Pimp C and Bun B were still releasing records at the time, and if this music was really to be considered trap music, it should have been something for Southern trappers to listen to while in their trap house or driving around. Any Southern trapper, Southern black person, or rap music fan should know who UGK is and probably was more excited to listen to this particular song on the album for Pimp C's verse than any other rapper on the song, including Tip. For him to say that in the intro shows part of T.I.'s marketing was the crossover to the mass market, and it did not stop at Urban Legend. His first album was hugely inspired, even to the point of a ripoff of UGK, and 5 years later, he's there reintroducing the Underground Kings, who by the Southern standard need no introduction. And also, there's no 808s on this record, so there's no 808s almost anywhere on the album. The singles from this album, include What You Know, Why You Wanna, Ride With Me, and Bankhead. And all except the R&B Why You Wanna, they have mostly a lot of Southern sounds. And the album actually served kind of as a soundtrack also to the ATL movie, which was really Southern in its imagery and everything. In ATL, T.I.'s character Rashad acts as a wiser but still lost in his own way older brother and caregiver of his younger brother. Rashad likes to rollerblade at the skate rink and draw pictures and goes to his job as a janitor, while most others in his neighborhood are more attracted to the quasi-glamorous life of a drug dealer. Though this movie highlights all aspects of the movie ATL, from the old man who never got out the hood, the young man trying to stay straight, though his outlook was dismal, and the young man who was trying to get his best to get out the hood, but having trouble making the connections necessary to really get out, and the man who made it out of the hood on a straight and seemingly impossible path from Bankhead to Buckhead, and his badass daughter. However, T.I. called the city of Atlanta itself the trap instead of the actual trap house, which depicts the story that surrounds the lyrics in trap music. Overall, T.I. did bring trap music to a commercial level and did use the term prominently in both his album and in his movie. However, his music did not really use the beat, the mumble rap or ad-libs predominant in trap music, and also T.I.'s drive to be a commercial artist drew him away from the title of being the originator of trap music. T.I.'s representation of the South on a nationwide scale was important for those rappers who would later come out of the South and go on to stardom, but considering the lack of musical aspects as well as the commercialization, T.I.'s music fits more as a predecessor to trap music than as actual trap music. As fellow Southern rapper Pee Wee Longway has described, T.I.'s music was more the Beyonce of trap music. It's not a terrible comparison, but hardly a gangster one, as you know, the gangster culture is glorified in trap music. T.I. will go down as the mainstream king of the South, but if trap music is indicative of the streets of the South, he more than likely was not the creator of trap music. So that brings us to the comparison and the little beef that happened between T.I. and Gucci Mane. So with 12 studio albums, 3 EPs, and 72 mixtapes, Gucci Mane has put out a huge body of work. And the first mixtape he made was pressed on 1,000 records in an extremely DIY process of distribution. And that's when Gucci actually created his own record label, which was LaFleur Entertainment. After going to New York to try to find a distribution deal, which he didn't receive at that time, he met Atlanta label owner Big Cat and then signed to Big Cat Records. His first well-known single was Black Tea, which was a mockery of the White Tea record, which hit mainstream success from them Franchise Boys, which was basically a commercialized version of a Southern rapper. In Gucci Mane's lyrics, I rob in my black tee, hit licks in my black tee, all in your house searching for bricks in my black tee was in a direct confrontation to Jermaine Dupri's then Franchise Boys, who were released as a commercialization of Atlanta's black culture to the masses. Gucci Mane, along with the Never Again family, created the remix for the people of Atlanta, who likely did not relate to them Franchise Boys and saw the group and the entire crunk movement as an oversimplification and a caricature of what Southern culture was. For people outside of the South, the crunk movement was indicative of the stereotypes that already persisted about the South. The word crunk started as a Southern slang meaning to turn up or to get excited at a party. Though Lil Jon and the marketing of his character and his product Crunk Juice, it began to take on a more negative connotation. The media, as well as the police, created a negative connotation to the term by creating the meaning of crunk being crazy and drunk, and especially with the reach that Lil Jon had to white suburban America at the time, the term got misconstrued and it was seen as an evil movement. The crunk movement ended up portraying black Americans from the South as crazy drunks, which influenced further the stereotype of people from the South being the most undereducated and most likely lazy Americans. This further solidified in the mind of many Americans, and especially the rap music industry, that the South was somewhat of a joke. And while they could be counted on for very light party music, they would not be able to compete with the real hip hop artists who came predominantly from the North and from New York at the time. With Black Tea as a catalyst, Gucci Mane began to change America's perception of the South. Gucci brought the reality of the South to the forefront in his song and video. Though the original version of the song was not released on any album through a label, it was released to the city of Atlanta with a great reception from the people of the city. It was the type of music that would be played in Atlanta's underground clubs and strip clubs, unlike the Franchise Boys version, which was played on BET and which was played on nationwide radio. The video for Black Tea took place inside and outside of a trap house and depicted the truth of what Gucci Mane most likely had witnessed in his entire life leading up to his music career. Gucci was coming into the rap game with a diss track, as well as it being in direct opposition to the commercial crunk music that was what the South needed at the time. Gucci Mane stayed true to his roots in the South. Gucci Mane didn't try to come across as being the Jay-Z or 50 of the South. He was just himself. Though this wasn't something that may have been accepted by a record label like So So Def, Gucci Mane portrayed a level of the South that had not been seen by a lot of people in hip-hop at the time. May 24th, 2005 was when Gucci Mane's first album came out, Trap Music, under Big Cat Records and distributed by Tommy Boy Records. Big Cat was a Southern label which created other Southern acts that had hit singles at the time. Though Gucci Mane's original try at his own record label did not receive any distribution deals, Gucci Mane still kept the Southern label when he did eventually get his distribution deal through Tommy Boy. By Gucci Mane staying true to his roots and staying independent, like most of the successful Southern artists who came before him, he was able to release music while staying true to his own style. Unlike T.I., who seemed to eventually try to fit in with the New York artists, and Young Jeezy, who was signed to Diddy's Bad Boy South, whose Boys in the Hood seemed more reminiscent of state property than any of the Southern acts. Gucci was able to really stay true to his style and his version of music more than T.I. or Young Jeezy was, because he was independent. Gucci Mane's album Trap House was released only 2 months after Urban Legend, and it was released by Big Cat Records, distributed through Tommy Boy. Trap House had the lead single Icy, which was the only charting single of this album. Trap House peaked at 101 on the Billboard 200, but 20 on the hip hop charts and 5 on the independent charts. Trap House also has only sold 127,000 records to date, and it didn't qualify for any of the RIAA certifications. And in fact, it was not until Gucci Mane's sixth album, State vs. Roderick Davis, which featured Wasted, Lemonade, and Spotlight, that he actually received the gold certification. Though Gucci continued to stay independent and did not make any huge Billboard, radio, or BET MTV level hits, he continued to create his cult fan base. Through his controversy in the media, as well as undiscovered music that only true fans would find, Gucci did for trap music what T.I. did not, which was to make it popular while keeping it trap. Even though Gucci did not have many Billboard hits on his own from his albums, he had 72 mixtapes, indicative of his push to the streets and understanding the LimeWire to streaming era that he was putting music out in. Instead of trying to become more commercial, he cultivated artists from his community, created recording studios, and invested his money. Gucci's biggest commercial hits included his features. From Obsessed with Mariah Carey all the way to Black Beatles, Gucci has been able to keep his name in the face of the nation without selling out his roots. Gucci brought trap to the world without having to change what trap music was about. Gucci's choice of production is also indicative of his loyalty to trap music. For the launch of Gucci Mane's career, he has worked with two major producers, which is Shawty Redd and Zaytoven. Shawty Redd introduced the 808s into music early, as discussed before with Drama Records. However, Zaytoven and his collaboration with Gucci Mane, as well as many of the Southern as well as pop artists, created the true sound of trap music. The beat that Zaytoven used combined 808s and hi-hats that were already used by Shawty Redd, but implemented his high knowledge of piano to create a certain type of music that was later implemented in Future's music and created the feel of the music that would later be used when trap music became its own genre. Zaytoven's musical skills are what helped Gucci Mane separate his music from the other artists of the time. Zaytoven's childhood of playing organs in church gave him the musical theory knowledge that he needed to produce quality and unique beats quickly. Though much of Gucci Mane's early commercial success was based heavily on his features, Gucci and Zaytoven continued to work together on Gucci Mane's 72 mixtapes. As compared to most artists of that time, Gucci focused on mostly quantity over necessarily the quality of his music. Zaytoven's work ethic is extremely similar. Zaytoven explained in his interviews that he would work a minimum of 10 beats per day, using his mother's basement as his studio, and Gucci would be right along with him. Gucci Mane's music may not have been as precisely mixed as other artists, and it may not have had such elaborate production as other artists, as even artists from the South, but he did come out with so many records that it couldn't be ignored. Much of this was thanks to Zaytoven, the producer, who could actually keep up with Gucci Mane's work ethic. Zay not only created the true trap beats, but also did it in a trap way right out of his mom's basement, and he did it as quickly as possible. As Zay went on to create such trap hits as Make the Trap A with OJ the Juice Man, which was one of the original songs that used ad-libs, which is similar to Young Thug and Migos, and as they created the Versace song with Migos and a lot of the most popular Future songs and his most recent solo albums in which he worked with some of Atlanta's most popular artists but highlighted his beats, Zaytoven's music continued to become the biggest in rap music. Also, as the Migos became so popular, Most rappers and especially record labels wanted to copy their style. Not only did other artists copy the Migos triplet style and ad libs, but they also copied Beethoven's beats. As trap music became more and more mainstream, it was clear that the music being created was all reminiscent and more so a carbon copy of Beethoven and Gucci Mane's creations. So, aside from the city, the artists, the lyrics of trap music, and aside from the beats and Beethoven, Gucci, T.I., all of them, mumble rap has been one of the most important things to come out of trap music. And mumble rap is something that has a lot of criticism in the culture. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about just mumble rap itself and how it relates to trap music. So, especially when the Migos came out, the term mumble rap became popular. Mumble rappers were known as the rappers like Future, Young Thug, and even the Migos, whose lyrics were almost impossible to discern on the songs and just sounded like they were mumbling something that became almost more of a melody than a rap. The lyrics were criticized of being devoid of any meaning and not really even part of rap music. Mumble rap was generally over a trap beat, such as one of Beethoven's. The Gucci Man was not really categorized into mumble rap. He came into popularity before most of the mumble rappers. He also was one of the first to create that genre. Mumble rap generally comes from the South, where people already have Southern drawls, which changes their speech into something that many people who are not from there, they don't understand it. The more rural and the more undereducated the Southerner is, usually the more difficult it is to understand their accent. With those accents and the combination of lean, which is an opiate and slows the muscular system, including those muscles that help with making clear speech, Southern artists' music became more and more similar to mumbling. Though the rappers who were creating mumble rap are irreplaceable and unmatchable to most rap music fans, the sound that they made without any attention to the lyrics or the feeling of the music or cultural surroundings which made those artists act the way they do, mumble rap started to become highly copied and eventually a caricature of the original artists. Mumble rap has been an integral part of trap music, and though some may think that it adds to the decay of rap music, it is part of culture that has always been able to tell a story deeper than its surface value. So, in the end, for in conclusion, I wanted to say who actually was the one who created trap music. And even though T.I. brought the name to the front of the culture, his business interactions as well as the production of the music did not represent the trap movement, which was coming out of the South. Gucci Mane maintained a low profile throughout the majority of his music, however, continues to have a larger and larger cultural impact based on his cult group of fans. Beethoven's beats with Gucci Mane's lyrics truly created the trap music that is so popular and mass produced right now. While other artists such as Young Jeezy, who came out of the South at the same time and is known for the Trap or Die mixtapes, and rappers like OJ the Juice Man, who really originated that A sound at the end of each bar, and he used the ad libs really for the first time so prominently in rap. It's really been T.I. who claimed himself as the originator. Though T.I. has been a very influential artist in the South and beyond, as well as an important part of culture, from showing the fruits of his success and portraying himself as a father figure on television to being a vocal leader in the fight against police brutality, his music was not the capitalist or the catalyst for trap music that is so popular today. Through Southern artists including Goody Mob, Scarface, 8 Ball MJG, 3 6 Mafia, UGK, Outkast, Master P, Trick Daddy, and so many countless others have portrayed the lifestyle of the Southern gangsta, none of them describe their music as trap music or themselves as a trap god, and their music does not have the production value of the music that has been created today. Overall, in the beat, the title of creator of true trap music that has been copied is Gucci Mane and Zaytoven. Without the combination of their work ethic, business intelligence, lifestyle, and culture, trap music would not be in existence as what it is now. Thank you guys for listening, and if you want to comment and share, subscribe. There's going to be more videos like this about rap culture, including the Rap Court series where I delve into the true crime stories of most of these rappers from a legal standpoint. Thank you guys for listening.